Hey, my fellow ECE friends out there, it's your girl, Erica Sokosho, with the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. I got a few shout outs before we start today's episode. Shout out to Michigan, Texas, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. I see you showing up on my stats every single day. To all of my listeners across the globe, I love you and thank you so much. So let's talk about today a really powerful concept that's been gaining traction in the world of childcare leadership, and that's leading with intention. But what does it mean to lead with intention? It's a phrase that we hear so often in education circles, but do we really understand its true impact on how we lead, on how we build trust and inspire others? How do we as childcare leaders use this concept to create a positive, thriving environment for both our staff and the children that we serve? And how do we ensure that everyone on our team is motivated by our why? Today, we're going to unpack these questions and explore how intentional leadership can help you lead others well, create trust, and foster a team that believes in your vision. So let's start with the basics. What does it mean to lead with intention? Well, leading with intention is often something that people just toss around, but it's not just about making a plan. Being intentional means aligning every action, every conversation, and every decision with your purpose and your values. Think about your role as a leader. When you lead with intention, you're not just reacting to situations as they arrive. Instead, you are thoughtfully considering how each action you take aligns with the bigger picture. Whether you're setting up new curriculum, having a staff meeting, or managing a difficult situation, leading with intention means you're doing so with the clear understanding of your values, your goals, and the ultimate impact on your team and the children. Here's a question for yourself. Think about how you approach your leadership with clear intent. Or do you find yourself reacting to the needs of the day without a long-term plan? Like AKA just putting out fires all day. Or are you intentional when you walk into the building? Do you have a plan as to what you hope to accomplish for the day? And of course, you have to hit your floor and say hello to all of your staff, all of your children, take care of any emergencies that may have happened before you arrived. But after that, it's time to take action. So let's talk about that. Take a moment today to pause. Think about one decision that you've made recently. How could you approach that decision more intentionally? And perhaps it was a conversation. Perhaps it was you were moving a room around, or you were cleaning, it could be any one of the billions of things you do every day. But did you do it with intention, or did you just go through the motions? And that's something you have to really think about. Why intentional leadership is so critical in early childhood education is because the field that we work in, it's such a dynamic field, and the environment in which we work with children are learning and growing, and the demands that we are thoughtful and consistent and deeply present. It's something that we have to be plugged into. When we lead with intention, we model these qualities for our staff, which in turn helps to create a more positive and focused workplace. And additionally, children and families and staff alike pick up on your intentionality. When they see that you're leading with purpose, it builds a sense of security and stability. And it sets a tone for the entire center. And when you're clear and intentional in your actions, it filters down to your team, creating that environment of not only trust, but professionalism. So here's a reflective question for you. In your center, do you think your staff feel a clear sense of direction and purpose? Or are there areas where you could be more intentional? And I'll wait for a minute. Perhaps you'll need to grab a piece of paper and a pen as we move through this, but really think about, where do you want your staff to put more intention, right? And then that's where you're going to focus your intention, and that's going to flourish. So identify one area in your work this week where you could be more intentional. It might be as simple as how you organize the morning meeting or how you communicate with a child's family, but make it happen. I talked about building, trust and believing in a vision. To lead with intentionality, it's not just about setting that plan, it's about how you lead your team toward that plan. You need to build trust and to get your staff to not just follow your lead, but believe in your vision. And how do you do that? Well, trust is the foundation of any successful team. And as a leader, you need to be transparent and consistent and authentic in your actions. And when your staff sees that you are not just saying things, but doing them with purpose, they start to believe in you and your vision. I have to tell you, I couldn't do it without my team. I have a big vision for lots of things. And some of my vision is to do things that are bigger than our center. But you have to build trust, focus, and be clear with your communication. And of course, you absolutely have to follow through. When you say something will happen, make sure it does. If you promise a meeting or an update, make it a priority. And we all have areas where we struggle. Having a meeting is one of them. I've been planning to have a meeting at one particular location for about a month and a half. And then, the daily things happen, the daily fires, who's out sick, what happens at home, all those things. Those things happen to me too. They happen to all of us. So I don't have everything figured out, but I am intentional about making sure I get back to those things that maybe haven't got closed up the way that I wanted them to. So ask yourself this: how transparent are you with your staff about the vision and the goals for your center? And are there any areas where you could be more open or consistent? And perhaps I'll start my meeting with, hey guys, I know we've been trying to get together for the last month and a half, but here we are. I'm sorry that it happened. Because again, you want to take accountability, because if I ask them to do something on a timeline, I expect it done. So, take accountability for your actions. Be intentional in your delivery and your apology. Here's an action step for you. Identify one area where you need to communicate more clearly with your team and make that a top priority, because I feel like communication is one of the things that you can't let slip through the cracks. Follow through with your updates and check-ins, and that will help build trust. Now, where do you find these people who believe what you believe? Because it's essential not only to lead intentionally, but also to find people who believe in your mission and your values. And having the right people on your team, those who share your passion for early childhood education, are key to achieving your vision. But how do you find these individuals? One way is by being clear about what your mission is and your values are right during the hiring process. I have to tell you, that's one of the things, when I ask folks, what type of PD do you have? And they come to me with no professional development, but they've worked in another center for 3 years. That blows my mind. And it happens more frequently than you think. But I let them know that professional development is extremely important to me. And it's important that we always are getting better, getting stronger, and staying up to date with what's current practice. So I'm very transparent about that. And I believe that when you're transparent, you attract like-minded individuals who are just as motivated to your why and the why behind your work. So ask yourself this: do you feel your team is aligned with your values and your mission? Or are there gaps that your team's vision doesn't quite match your own? So an action step that you could do is, reflect on your current team. Are you hiring people who share your core beliefs? And if not, what can you do better to align your hiring practices with your mission? And do you go backwards? And maybe you do. Maybe you get a little clearer at your next meeting and you say, this is where we're going. This is where I believe. Here is how we're going to do it. And then check the boxes. If they're not plugged in, if they're not moving forward with you, it might be time to say, maybe this isn't the right center for you. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay for both people to acknowledge, right? As a child care leader, there are many times that staff will come to you with their 2 weeks notice and say it's not the right fit, or they've decided to do something different in the field or leave the field altogether. And it's okay for us to do the same as leaders, to say, I'm feeling like this isn't quite working out. How can we help you get to where we need to be? Or how can we help you move on to the next place that might be a better fit? You have to motivate your team with your shared why. When your team believes in your why, everything changes. People are no longer just showing up for a paycheck. They're showing up because they believe in the mission. They believe in the vision of your center. And they're motivated by the same goals, and the energy becomes contagious. And this is so true, and I've seen it in my center. One person can change the whole momentum of a center, both negatively and positively. When you articulate your why, whether it's providing the best care for children, whether it's creating a safe space for the next learning or nurturing, just whatever it is for the next generation of educators, your team feels that energy. Then they will align their efforts with the center and move forward that shared sense of purpose. So ask yourself this: does your team truly understand and feel motivated by the why of your center? And how do you communicate that why on a regular basis? And if the answer is you don't know, or you haven't really thought about it, that's okay. Because again, we started with intentionality. So be intentional as you start to think about, how am I showing up every day, living my vision, living my mission for the program? So here's an action step. Organize a team building session to discuss the center's mission and values. Ask your team to share their personal connection to the why and how it motivates them. So as we wrap up, I just want to remind you that leading with intention isn't just about making decisions. It's about aligning every action with purpose and creating an environment where the staff believe in your vision, help you feel empowered to carry it out. And when you lead with intention, you build trust, you find like-minded individuals, and you motivate your team to act in alignment with your shared purpose. By doing so, you are setting the stage for a thriving and purposeful child care center. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Child Care Director Share podcast. I'm your host, Erica Sokosho, and as always, remember, it's the small details that make a big impact on the success of your child care business. Bye.